안녕하세요. 다들 좋은 하루 보내고 계신가요? 오늘은 제가 투자를 하면서 가장 좋아하기도 하지만 가장 많은 것을 배우고 있는 친구이자 지난 2년간 마켓의 움직임을 정확하게 맞췄던 투자자 크리스 버밀런과의 인터뷰를 나누려고 합니다. 작년에 마켓이 크게 내려가고 있을 당시에 이 친구 같은 경우에는 차트와 지표를 보면서 아마도 마켓은 한 번 더 최고점을 찍을 것이다. 그 지점을 뚫고 나면 뉴스면 미디어에서 온통 마켓의 불 랠리에 대한 뉴스로 가득하면서 개별 주식들 중에 놀라울 정도로 크게 오르는 주식들이 여러 생길 것이고 포모로 인해 많은 개별 투자자들을 마켓에 끌어들일 거라고 했었는데요. 일단 세 개의 인덱스 모두 새로운 최고점을 기록하고 있고요. 엔비디아, SMCI 등 특정 주식들이 10배 이상 오르면서 투자라는 것을 평생 해보지 않으신 분들마저도 회사에 대한 리서치 없이 주위에서 다들 이 주식들에 투자를 해서 돈 버는 것을 보고 엔비디아나 SMCI 같은 주식에 돈을 투자하면서 마켓을 올리는 데 지금 한몫하고 있습니다. 자, 이 친구의 말에 따르면 이렇게 리서치도 없고 고민도 없이 이미 크게 오르고 있는 주식에 투자라는 분들이 많아지는 시기가 바로 마켓에 큰 풀백이 오기 직전의 전형적인 패턴이라고 하는데요. 한번 지켜봐야 될 것 같습니다. 자, 제가 이 친구를 알고 나서부터 한 2년간 이 친구의 말대로 마켓이 정말 움직여줬는데요. 더 중요한 부분은 자, 이 다음부터 마켓이 어떻게 움직이냐겠죠. 자, 이번 인터뷰에서는 지금 불 랠리에 대한 이 친구의 전망과 마켓을 움직이는 인스티튜셔널 머니는 지금 어디로 움직이고 있는지, 그리고 크리스가 가장 눈여겨보고 있는 지표들을 오늘 영상에서 나눌 생각이고요. 인터뷰가 길어지는 바람에 2부로 나누어서 편집을 했는데요. 내일 올라올 2부 영상에서는 미연준이 금리를 내릴 경우 마켓에 어떤 움직임이 있을 거라고 예상을 하는지와 본인은 지금 현금을 들고 있는지 아니면 주식에 투자를 하고 있는지, 그리고 만약 주식에 투자 중이라면 어떤 주식에 투자 중인지 등도 나누도록 하겠습니다. 자, 여러분들께서 투자를 하시는데 분명히 큰 도움이 될 거라는 생각을 합니다. 그리고 제가 댓글들을 보다가 두 분의 댓글을 보고 오늘 영상을 업로드하면서 살짝 걱정이 되었는데요. 일단은 이전 제 영상 중에 제가 영어로 주식들을 소개할 때 제 혓바닥에 버터가 너무 들어갔다라고 하신 분이 계시는데, 오늘은 인터뷰 전체를 영어로 할 예정이기 때문에 그분께서 끝까지 들으실 수 있을지 좀 걱정이 되고요. 또 다른 분께서는 제 영어는 미국인들이 알아듣지 못하는 영어이고 저 같은 사람 때문에 동양 사람들이 무시를 받게 된다라고 남겨주셨는데, 오늘 인터뷰하시는 분이 제 영어를 못 알아들을까봐 걱정이 조금 됩니다. 자, 지금까지 이 채널에서 영어로 인터뷰를 수십 번도 더 하고 회사에서도 영어로 발표를 매일매일 하지만 이분의 댓글을 보고 나서 처음으로 제 영어에 대해 걱정이 조금 되네요. 자, 그러면 오늘 제가 인터뷰한 친구가 제 영어를 알아듣는지 함께 살펴봐 주시기 바라겠고요. 이 친구의 인사이트가 정말 아주 디테일하고 정확한 데다가 시간차가 있을 수는 있지만 지금까지는 맞았던 경우가 많았기 때문에 분명히 투자하시는데 도움이 될 거라는 생각을 합니다. 그리고 유튜브의 알고리즘이 보다 많은 분들께 이 친구의 인사이트를 나눌 수 있도록 구독과 라이크 그리고 짧은 댓글이라도 꼭 부탁드리겠습니다. 그리고 지금 같은 마켓에 투자하기 좋은 기회들을 놓치지 않고 함께 투자하고 싶으신 분들께서는 아래 제 페이트런 서비스 링크를 클릭하셔서 줌 미팅 때 꼭 뵙고 인사를 드렸으면 좋겠습니다. 자, 그러면 디스크레이머만 듣고 영상 바로 보도록 하겠습니다. 모든 컨텐츠들은 어디까지나 정보 전달을 위한 영상들이기 때문에 절대 영상만 보시고 주식들을 매도하지 마시기 바라고요. 본인 스스로 반드시 리서치를 더 하신 다음에 판단을 내리시기 바라겠습니다.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to have Chris Vermeulen, one of the best traders in the market and founder and chief market strategist at the technicaltraders.com on our channel today once again. So thank you very much for your time today. And it's always great to see you, Chris.
Yeah, pleasure to be on the show, Andrew. I always enjoy our calls.
So it seems like you nailed it when you said on our previous interviews last year that you see the market heading for a new all-time high. And as we all know now, all three indexes have made a new all-time high. Now, the question that I think most investors may have is this a true bull rally that will last for another decade, or is it another rally that will be followed by a major market crash very soon? Can you share your perspective on the rally we are seeing in the market these days?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of layers to the market. And if I show my charts, I can try and explain some of this. So long story short, this is the weekly chart of the SP 500 going back to 2019. We got the COVID crash. And the key here is, I think last time you and I talked, we talked about, I said, I think I would love to see the SP 500 hit a new all-time high. And then from there, however it starts to move, will start to give us insight to, is this the start of a new 10-year or something bull market? Or is this kind of one last push higher that the market is trying to suck every investor in who isn't in the market, who would get into the market and then reverse and sell off? And so we are starting to see see the signs. If we take a look at the RSP ETF, which is the equal weighted SP 500, meaning instead of giving all the heavy weight to the big techs, all 500 companies have the same weighting in it. And really the stock market is just coming up to a double top. This is the reality of the SP 500 is really we're just getting up to new all-time highs really in the past week or two. If we look at the Russell 2000, you can see they're nowhere near their highs. In fact, they've broken down and they're forming this sideways pause in consolidation that is very indicative of a major market top. Small caps tend to rally first. They tend to sell off first. And the fact that they're not really participating in this rally is a big red flag. To just kind of look at the market from a really high level, there's 4 stages that the market goes through. And if you understand how to identify stages, what to look for, and know what stage you're in, it requires a different type of trading or investing strategy. And I believe we are in this topping stage. The majority of stocks are just like the Russell 2000 are going sideways here, while a few sectors and the major broad markets that are tech heavy are pushing to all new time highs, masking what's actually really going on. So I believe we're going to be hitting a bigger sell-off at some point, and we have big volume spikes. You can see we have a series of big volume spikes and big drops on the SP 500 now that we've hit these new all-time highs. And that to me is a sign that some institutions are starting to unload. They're lightening their portfolio, really getting their shares out and putting them in the hands of the average investor. I believe right now is the average investor feeding frenzy. AI, NVIDIA, people are just getting sucked into the market and they feel like they're missing out if they don't get part of it. And those are the people who are going to end up probably buying at the high, and then they're going to panic out at the low 3, 6, 12 months from now, whenever that is. And they're going to absolutely hate the financial markets. Right now we're in March. We're in the middle of March. Typically we see the stock market want to push higher for another couple of months, seasonality wise. In fact, this seasonality wise of the SP 500, if you were to stretch out last year's 1-year chart, it looks just like this. Maybe we are going to see this market run up into May, and the saying is sell in May and go away. And maybe that's when the market runs out of steam. We also have the elections in the US that can push the markets higher up into the election. Things are in an uptrend, and you really do need to trade with the trend. It'd be ideal to be long these markets, although I think they're getting a little overbought. It's jumping a little late now because we've had a very strong run.
Another interesting thing that I was really curious is when you showed the S&P 500 chart and you were talking about the volume. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you were saying that you see the volume of selling going high, meaning that you think the institutions are selling off and taking the profits, and the rally right now is more in the hand of the retail investors that are coming in at a late stage, while the smart money is actually taking profits. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And typically when the stock market gets a little nervous, investors, they tend to move to defensive sectors. For example, XLP. This is one that we've been long. It just wants to keep going up and to the right. But we saw a big sell-off yesterday in the stock market in XLP, which is considered a defensive play. Generally, if the stock market pulls back a little bit and there's some fear, XLP actually wants to go higher because no matter what happens with the economy, we're still going to need toilet paper, toothpaste, all of those consumer staples. When we have a big down day and all of the defensive stocks even collapse as well, that to me is just telling me there's some big institutions that are lightening their load, just saying, get me out of equities in general. Just start trimming things off. Let's get a couple billion off our plate and just put it out into the public here. Let them suck it up. And then they'll do it again over time. And eventually we'll start to potentially see more of these as more institutions start thinking we're getting close to a top and they start doing this. And then eventually it takes over and we start the downward trend, and then they panic and they all want to get out before the next big wave. And that's what creates a very sharp and a very big pullback.
It's very interesting. Because you brought this up, I'm just curious. Do you have something in mind that you think might trigger a major pullback in the near future? And I know that you're mostly focused on the charts, but looking at the charts, is there a major indicator that you really focus on, that you feel confident that the market's trend is like changing?
I follow price action. I mean, as investors, we all make money if price of our investment goes in the direction that we want it to go. So the moving averages work very, very well for that. And I think you and I talked about the key moving averages. I like the 5-day, the 20-day, and the 50-day moving average. But when you get to look at long-term timeframes, there is a good way to take a look at that. And I can actually just show you here on my screen, on here I've drawn this little dotted line. And so if you're on the daily chart of the indexes, this dotted line is like roughly the 150-day moving average. This whole screen here with this 4 stages and the 150-day moving average from a really high level, if the stock market on average is staying above the 150-day moving average and the moving average is sloping up, then you're probably in a stage 2. If price is below it or chopping around it and the 150 days starting to roll over, then you're probably in a big pause or in a stage 3 topping phase. And then of course, when price is naturally below the 150-day and it's sloping down, then you're in a stage 4, a bear market, a decline. So from a big high level, this is a really good way to get a feeling, okay, are we in a rising tide environment or are we in a falling tide environment? In a rising tide, you can pretty much throw darts at stocks or sectors and do just as good as a stock picker. In a falling market, my belief is you either want to benefit from falling prices, so bet against the market, wanting it to fall, or you have to move to a different asset class, move into potentially the US dollar, move into potentially long-term treasury bonds if the interest rates top out and bonds start to move up. So you really need to understand where we are. And this is a really good high-level view of where we are. And a stage 3 is a very difficult stage. Small cap stocks have been in this since March of 2021. So all along, the retail investor has pretty much left the market. They all got hot and heavy with COVID, and then they all lost their shirts in 2021 and 2022. And so that wave is done, but the indexes are much more delayed. They're in the stage 3 top and they haven't broken down yet like most small caps. The stock index is just kind of clinging on, just kind of inching its way higher. But I do think we're going to see the hammer drop here this year at some point.
So you're saying that the individual investors have got out of the market in 2022, and it's mostly the smart money or the institutional money that's actually keeping the market going up. But do you still see that there is a lot of cash on the side that needs to be sucked into the market before we see that, major downtrend come in?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cash on the sidelines. And
조금이라도 도움이 되셨다면 주위 분들과 나눠주셨으면 너무 고맙겠고요. 구독과 라이크를 해주시면 더욱 감사하겠습니다.